This is UGA Sports Live. I'm Dayne Young alongside Radi Nabulsi and the former Georgia head coach Jim Donnan. And we're here to break down Georgia's shutout win against Arkansas and then to preview Auburn. Great week for the Dogs. We're in October, Roddy, and Georgia undefeated.
Yeah, I feel like we don't have enough energy for that intro. That intro comes in with all the booming music, and they were like, "Hey, everybody." I feel like we need to step it up a bit, just like Georgia's defense did this past weekend with a back-to-back shutout. Last two games, Georgia is 99-0 over Arkansas and Vanderbilt. We kind of expected that with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not that good, but Arkansas was a top 10 team, number 8 in the nation. And coach, I just want to get your overall thoughts on it because this was a Georgia ground and pound team. I mean, they just ran it down Arkansas's throat, took what the defense gave them. If you're going to rush 3 men, Georgia's just going to run it right at you. And I was just very impressed with the run game. We hadn't seen that run game since Clemson.
It was a very dominating performance, one that certainly you expected a little bit as far as defensively shutting down this team, but offensively showed some really good signs of being very physical. And I think regardless who the quarterback is, we were running plays that really were designed to be run first and not a lot of RPOs, just really hat-on-hat type deals. And their only chance was backside pursuit. And for the most part, we contained that with pretty good backside blocking. So as long as if a team plays a 3-man front, and the tendency with several teams that's in the college football now, you're seeing it with Iowa State and the Big 12, somewhat some other teams around the country that play teams that really are pass first. It really is a good concept because you got 8 guys really effectively that can defend the pass. And it worked very good for Arkansas against a good, very good Texas team and an A&M team that really had a hard time at quarterback. But, Stetson Bennett came in there and directed the show. And what he was able to do is use the snap count, use some either-or plays where you could go one side or the other like a veteran quarterback would do. And we had really good rhythm. And, the other thing that just really discombobulated Arkansas was it's hard enough to know you got to score, 14, 21 points to have a chance. But then all of a sudden you give Georgia for the second year in a row, a block punt. And very good execution there by Dan Jackson, a guy that's really playing a lot of snaps for us when you look at special teams, dime coverage, all that. And he's working his way toward a scholarship. I mean, you got to look at his productivity and what he's done, and I'm real happy for him. One thing I will mention here, because I'm sure that people try to find a lot of things wrong with anything, and certainly you can't in that game, but I'm just going to mention about on our special teams that we did have several penalties for illegal procedure, which you have to have 7 men on the line. So I want everybody to just stay with me here and show you the how this happens. So the end man on the line looks inside to the next guy to him, but for alignment, by that I mean how far can he be off the ball and still be legal? Because the deeper you are, the better you can protect, and you can recognize the rush and you can see what happens. So he looks at the first guy to his inside, which is considered a tackle, and then the next guy is a guard who really sets it up. I mean, he looks at the center's feet. He looks at the ball, and he gets as deep as he can, but still be legal. So what happened was he started out too deep, the inside guy. So by the time the tackle took his regular alignment, which was a little deeper, and by the time the end man took his alignment, which is a little bit deeper, he was off the ball too far to be considered a 7th man on the line of scrimmage. So we see that a lot of times with offensive tackles in the pass game. They'll get back as far as they can and still be legal to block a speed rusher. And, the linesman will call him for not enough guys on the line. So that's what happened here. The guard wasn't lining up close enough to the ball, and subsequently the tackle was too far, and then the end. And I'm sure Roddy was going to tell us about that, but I wanted to.
You stole my line.
I was looking forward to trying to beat you to the punch, but It's just a little thing, and I'm sure Kirby and Muschamp and all those guys will get that covered. And if it's going to happen, it's better to happen in a game like that. But other than that, you really just can't find too many warts on that. And the thing that was so—
I got a wart for you, Coach. I got one.
Well, okay, but you know how to get rid of a wart on your arm or hand, don't you? Do not look at it for 2 weeks and it'll leave. That's an old wives' tale, but it'll work. Don't look
That's
at that.
North Carolina bullshit right there. That's what that
It
is.
works 100%. Anybody's got a wart, you don't look at it for 2 weeks. It's history. So here's the deal with our team, though, which I liked. The scenario, the atmosphere, the location of everything about college football. We were at the epicenter of it for 4 hours plus Saturday. The game, the prelude with the ESPN game day being here, the build up on Friday when they're doing all these headshots of Kirk Herbstreit live from Athens, Georgia, Chris Fowler being on the Sports Center talking about the game. It just promotes the idea that Georgia is a highly ranked team with a really good program. And, for Kirk to come in here and do a special on our defense and interview him right there in the new facility, just loads and loads of positive energy coming out of here. And, I feel like the thing that really excites me as an old coach, as a new coach, as a coach, is that we've gotten through 5 games with our secondary, which was an issue to me going into the season, and been able to protect those guys. And now all of a sudden they're pretty damn good. So it could be Katie bar the door now because our secondary's got confidence. We could probably start using a little bit more rush. We've only had to rush 5 guys. And plus everybody, this is a big opening. Plus everybody thinks we're stronger than dirt. I mean, everybody thinks that we're indestructible. And, that really helps you a little bit, because even if we aren't, that little thought in their mind, good God, we're playing Georgia, we're going to have a hard time scoring. Look at that defense. Look at those big guys. Look at the way they run. Look at all this stuff. Boy, that's tough. I mean, people keep texting me, is this the best defense ever? All that stuff. Hey, it's going to be a really good defense as you continue to progress. But the biggest thing about our team is we've gone 5 games and nobody's exposed our secondary. And now I don't think they're capable of doing that. I think our secondary is caught up. It's ready to rock and roll. And great job by Lanning, Muschamp, Kirby, new secondary coach from West Virginia. I mean, just really good job training those guys.
I did want to touch on I stole your comments there about the secondary, because you mentioned this previously in previous weeks, and I had not seen how, until watching 3, 4, 5 games into the season, watching how that front 7 took care of the secondary. You always know that if you get some quarterback pressure, it makes it easier on the secondary. I mean, it's basic football. But I didn't realize how many pressures they had gotten until Dayne and Brent were showed it on film. Don't lie. It's just when Nakobe Dean comes flying through and Devontae White's chasing the quarterback, if you're back there as a nickel guy, or you're in the the free safety boundary side or anything like that, you're like, hey, this is great, man. I don't have to. He didn't have time to throw it. I look great. My uniform's nice and clean. I don't have to do any work back here. I got it made. And I was worried when I said I had a wart up on this game. The wart was I predicted Arkansas to be able to move the ball some. I thought that they were going to be more productive than they were. I was maybe a little too much Munson-itis in me, a little too pessimistic, Coach. But I really thought that Arkansas would be able to move some. They had one drive that was good. That was about it. And I mean, we mentioned this on the Watch Along show. Everyone, please tune in this following Saturday. We'll have the Watch Along show with the 3 of us where we actually watch the game live. But my predictions were wrong, because I thought that Arkansas with KJ Jefferson, Treylon Burks, they were going to be able to move the ball some on the Georgia. And after what Van did at South Carolina, he was able to kind of expose some weaknesses in that secondary. I thought with the threat of the quarterback run, now you're going to be able to move the ball in this defense, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, and this is just a perfect storm the way the game started. We took the ball and rammed it down their throat, and then they had several penalties for the 9,000th time when our team stemmed, the other team dumped and moved, and they got 2 penalties and a lost yard. So it's really, and you had the block punt. They never got to have a chance to do those things that you projected. So I'll defend you a little bit there. I mean, they just got, you're over there on the sideline and Pittman's talking to the coordinator, say, hey, see if we can make a first down. I ain't worried. Touchdown. And, so it just got out of hand as far as them having any chance to run their regular offense. I mean, you're trying to still win the game, and you can't win the game unless you make some big plays. One thing I was really surprised, though, they didn't use any 12 personnel and max protect and just throw the ball deep to Burks. They never even took a shot at him deep hardly. I mean, they did get the one run down the boundary where we missed the tackle, but and Kirby's talking about we didn't get many turnovers or any, and that's something he just wants to really stress. But other than that, that was and what was even better was all the recruits that were here. I don't get to know exactly who were here, but you see on our site, our guys do a great job of chronicling who's coming, and then they also say after the fact they interview them about what their impressions were, which I think is really good for what happens. But I know Friday I was eating lunch with Chris D'Alica over at a local place, and we're sitting in there. And then here comes Kamari Wilson and Humphreys. And, of course, I knew who they were, but they didn't know me. But they knew Bear. They knew him. So, all of a sudden the mothers wanted to get pictures with Bear. And then they're introducing me, and I'm telling them I'm Kirby's ex-coach and all that. But I'm telling you now, those 2 kids, good-looking defensive backs. And, one of the things I told them was, look, watch that game tomorrow. 16, 29, 11, all those guys aren't going to be here next year. You could jump in here and play. So I'm trying to recruit a little bit there, but that was fun for me to see those guys. And, they were here all weekend and they had to have a good time.
Dayne, you work on campus. You were right there. You put out this great montages of everything kind of building up to the game. Talk about the atmosphere on campus.
It really started on Wednesday when College Game Day was beginning to construct that set. And I hope people realize that a show like that, it takes multiple days and a ton of manpower to make it happen for those 3 hours of TV. And then this one was extra complicated with having the secondary set on really underneath the scoreboard, kind of on that plaza with the field in the backdrop, which you can't have better marketing for Georgia than what that shot was for an hour. And so that was a great broadcast for that. In terms of just energy, I mean, I heard people saying this was the loudest they had heard Sanford Stadium since Notre Dame, the loudest they had heard a day game since LSU 13. And I had people saying there's no way that Arkansas is going to be able to operate its offense being in this side of the field with as loud as it was early in the game. I think you saw that. And then compounded on that, Arkansas is just not a team that's built to come from behind. And frankly, I don't know if Georgia is either. We haven't seen them have to do it. And offensively, that's where that comes down is can you come from behind when you have to? Georgia's more equipped to do it than Arkansas is. But if Arkansas gets down 14 points, it's a tough road to hoe for a team like that because they don't have the consistency in the passing game. If the run game's not working. Overall, though, for your question, the atmosphere was fantastic. And I think that you're seeing that. And we're seeing that on the vault with kind of the buzz and recruiting that comes after it. Yeah. Anytime that there's a big UGA moment, you kind of feel the recruits say, oh, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I want to kind of point that out because you have most of the nation right now looks at Georgia and Alabama, 2-1, top 2 teams, and then there's kind of a gulf between 3 through 25. There is a definite talent differential there and just a perception. So think about this. If you are Michael Williams, this is a 5-star defensive end from Georgia, from, the kind of Columbus area. This is Dale McGee's old stomping grounds. And you're committed to USC. There's, glamour, glitz, the bright lights of the West Coast. That's on your mind. And then you're thinking, well, this is, I want to be out West where all the action is. And you watch the Georgia-Clemson game with the College Game Day is on site in Charlotte. Then you come to Athens and you watch College Game Day in Athens. And you saw that, I think Coach brought it up, Kirk Herbstreit, who was great enough to do our show, we also had Reese Davis on. You need to check out both those podcasts. To see Kirk Herbstreit sitting down with N'Kobe Dean and Adam Anderson and Nolan Smith and all those guys talking to them, you're like, wow, I could be on I would love to be part of that family. That was a great segment. I want to be a part of that community, that team, that those guys love each other. I want to be a part of that. But ESPN and College Game Day and CBS, we're going to have back-to-back CBS 3:30 games for Georgia right now. All the glitz and glamour of USC, who just fired a coach, it doesn't really hold up as well. So Michael Williams, this huge one, the number 2 player in the state of Georgia, the number 2 defensive end of the nation, sitting in there, he looks behind him, and Lee Corso's putting on the giant bulldog head, again, and he's 15 feet behind him. And then Kirk Herbstreit's up there calling the game, a noon game. The students came rushing into the stadium an hour and a half before kickoff. Student section absolutely full. The place was wild. Bear Alexander, former Georgia commit, comes in from Texas. He's up from IMG down in Bradenton, Florida. He's watching this going, I was committed to this. Look at what this defensive line is doing. First series, false start, then a sack. So he's like minus 14 yards on that first series. He's like, wow, the team just shut out Vanderbilt. Now they shut out a top 10 team. From the recruiting standpoint, like Coach says with Kamari Wilson, we think that Georgia kind of leads for him. You're like, wow, that made an impression. All the atmosphere, the atmosphere had an outcome on the game. As you can see, Arkansas couldn't run their offense like they wanted to. It was really loud in there, false starts everywhere. But it has more than just an effect on the game. It has an effect on Georgia's roster going forward. You had some 2024 guys in there. You had some 2023 guys in there, guys who are juniors and sophomores in high school. This game sets the bar for wherever they go. They can go watch an Auburn game. They can go to the Iron Bowl. They can go to the Egg Bowl. They can go watch Florida take on Florida State. But this game is going to be what they're going to measure it against. And I think that you can't say enough about the atmosphere and how much Kirby mentioned it. The second the Vanderbilt game was over, what did he do? He challenged the fans to come out and be loud. And it worked for him.
It definitely did. I look, Georgia's program's in a good spot right now. Some of it's because of where the schedule sets up. Some of it's because of the energy around the team. Coach is right that there are still some questions to be answered. But what I hope fans are doing, whether they're in Valdosta and Cairo or way up in North Georgia, maybe Savannah to Columbus, enjoy what you're watching, man. I think a lot of times people try to find what's the thing that's wrong, what's the thing they can get better. They try to sound like the coach on it. And I'm like, look, this team has a chance to be special. We'll see if it is, but it's October and Georgia's in as good a position as anyone. So trying to find what's wrong, trying to talk about the quarterback situation, that I think that Georgia fans should just be really thrilled with where the Dogs are.
That's what we talked about last week, Coach. We talked about enjoying this team.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just see how it plays out. I'm concerned about our receiver injury wise. We've been getting by with some guys that really aren't people that make you worry defensively a lot playing wide receiver for us. But McConkey's really made a tremendous improvement, and I would worry about him a little bit more than maybe anybody else. But hopefully Burton can get back, and we can talk about every week. Jackson Hill is still up. Smith's still up in the air. Rosenby St. Jack's still up in the air. Blaylock still up in the air. That's a lot of issues there. But, you look around the league and you look at these quarterbacks, and I guarantee you everybody in the league except maybe Ole Miss and with Corral and, Max Johnson certainly looking good, but he doesn't have much help. But, Stetson knows how to win, and he makes the play. So, I'm just tired of talking about that from, the what if situation. Just base it on performance. And, you can say, well, hey, he's not going against anybody. So let's take that into account. You think our defense is going against anybody? So Harry Davis isn't very good. N'Kobe Dean isn't very good because he goes in against a sophomore left guard who can't block him and all, but that doesn't matter. Our defense is the best ever, but we're going against these terrible defensive teams, so Stetson's not good enough. So we haven't played against an offense right now based on the way they played that even is remotely threatening to anybody. And so I think that's what we feel like about our own offense too. We haven't played against any defenses either. So that's a bad thing to argue about for me on the fact of Bennett. But here's the thing: we're going against a team that's our state border rival here in Auburn, a team that's got fool's gold from my standpoint based on 3 wins against some really bad teams, but a good win against LSU, who's playing without an offensive line. They might as well just go up there and say, hey, none of you 5 guys line up here, just see what you can do on your own, Max, because they have no pass protection, no running game. And they, had the game won, but they did nothing in the second half. And give credit to Mike Bobo, and he had that good play that he gave Bo Nix. He said, "Hey, send it to Bo, and everybody else ad lib it from here." And he had 2 great ad libs, and they won the game.
No, that was a good point. I think the reason everybody keeps looking for that the wart, it's just Georgia fans. It's in the nature to wait for that other shoe to drop. You're always waiting for where's that Achilles heel, where's the issue. And for some people, it's got to be the quarterback. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. And I'm as guilty of as anybody else. So that's the thing.
But I think the problem with that is there's so much of that's out of Georgia's control. Like receiver health is an issue at Georgia right now. Okay, well Georgia can't make these guys get better faster. That's just scientifically not possible. The defensive backs probably haven't been tested by an efficient passing game. Look at the schedule. I don't know if that's going to happen anywhere throughout the regular season. So then maybe you get to Atlanta and you're like, these guys haven't been tested and they will be there. So their best test is going to be in practice every week, compared to the way that I'm looking at the teams on Georgia's schedule and the way that they're passing the football.
But the schedule.
Hey, I'm just going to tell you right now, Tennessee, just the way they playing right now with that speed, rushing those plays in and being very effective. I'm a little bit more of a believer in Tennessee. Of course, their defense doesn't show me much. And, of course, Florida, hey, how do you win a game when you have 15 penalties? That's ridiculous. I've never seen any team win a game with 15 penalties and a blocked field goal. Certainly Kentucky undefeated right now. There's some people right now that really are thinking about whether they're going to go to that midnight madness for basketball because they still got a football team there. They're going to keep on trucking here and, probably beat LSU. They got to sell out and be undefeated coming in here to Sanford Stadium next week. So, we got some good teams that we got to play, but at the same time, I like the way our team is improving. I feel like our offensive line is really getting ready to gel. We're getting some good depth. Radi mentioned that Saturday about all those guys on the offensive line getting some good reps in there, and they feel very good about putting Jones in there early, moving Salyer to guard. So you don't get that kind of rushing attack, even with good backs, unless you're knocking some people off the ball. And that's what we did Saturday, and that's what we need to do. And it's kind of a survival for this line every day going out there and practice against our D-line. You better do it or you're going to get the dog when you're beat out of you every day if you don't learn some good technique. And I'm telling you right now, our team practices as hard as any team, and I can say this, 50 years of watching football, we run more reps and practice harder than any team that I've ever been associated with. And I like that. I like the way we compete, and I'm sure Kirby got that from Alabama, but we don't take it easy. After Thursday's practice, you say, hey, well, Hayes in the barn. Let's go ahead and get ready and chill. And hey, Friday, our guys are over there. They got some classes up their home, but they're over there studying tape, breaking down the practice tape from yesterday, doing another walkthrough. I mean, we do more walkthroughs than Roddy goes through buffet lines. I mean, we go.
That's impossible. There's only 20 hours in a week, Coach.
And we walk through to the max now, so we know what we're doing. We're very well coached and very well prepared. I can't say how any team could be any better prepared than we are.
Before we turn the page on Arkansas, I'm going to give you 4 players that caught my eye in my rewatch on Sunday. One, Darnell Washington being back is a big deal. I mean, he didn't play a ton of snaps, but just his physical blocking is going to be massive for Georgia. 2, Ladd McConkey's downfield blocking. You heard Kirby say that perimeter blocking has been an issue. Ladd McConkey is working his butt off there. And then 2, on the interior, Cedric Van Pran, I thought, had his best game as a Bulldog. And I don't see him yielding that starting center spot back anytime soon. I know at the beginning of the season that was the discussion. And then the player that I think that has emerged as the best player on the team, and Coach, I should have just listened to you. Jalen Carter is causing so much havoc. And I mean, Arkansas, all these sacks you're seeing, if you look on like the formation, like slightly to the other side, it's usually because Jalen Carter's crashing in about 2 guys to open up all these different lanes, whether it's for Nakobe Dean or Adam Anderson. Jalen Carter is virtually unblockable.
He's just, he definitely a blocking force too. When he put him in there on the goal line, he blocked 3. So he's just a man possessed. Walker is too. It's hard to disseminate who the best. You know, they're all playing good, and they love it playing together, and they're unselfish. And you can see, to me, just the way our team reacted around Dan Jackson after he made that play. All the guys on the field, on the sideline, I don't think there was one person. Of course, we didn't have a shot. I don't think there's one person in our program that didn't come up to him and congratulate him. And, you know, self-acceptance is one thing, but having people on your team accept you and realize the hard work and realize the contribution you're making to the program, and it's so gratifying for everybody to understand that and see it. I mean, that was very vivid that what his effort did, and you know, it was a mistake by the coverage by the block team, that's for sure. But they were just happy for him. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, you know, you're part of the team, and you know the rest of the team recognizes it.
Well, you talk about guys that had an outstanding performance. I know it's all the hard work they put in. You talk about all the practice they do, Coach, but we know it's the Sox. It's the lucky Sox. They're 5-0. It's all because of our friends at Dead Sox. That's changed it. That's changed it. Everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't have to worry about it. You got Dead Sox who are taking care of you now. But I kind of kid, but our friends at Dead Sox, they are a sponsor of our show, and they do fantastic work. They even have some new styles coming out. We're not really allowed to mention them yet. They would knock your socks off, but of course, Dead Soxy socks don't come off. They have the stay-in-place technology. They actually don't cut off the blood flow to your feet by squeezing your calves too tight or your ankles too tight, but they stay up. And it's the True Stay technology. You got to check it out. Of course, the materials that they make these things from are so soft. They're so comfortable. You're really, really it's like they call it a buttery feel because these socks are fantastic. And they have all these great styles. You know, you can have your kick Auburn's butt style. Or you can have your destroy Florida stripes. You know, you can have your finally get past Alabama red and black there. So, and of course, you know, go to church and make fun of your Tennessee buddies, polka dots there. So just say, and again, they have other styles for other schools too. So if your boss is an LSU fan, you know, which I don't know if that ever happens in real life, but you know, if it did and you needed to get him something and you wanted to kiss up a little bit, they have great LSU themed socks. They have tons for other schools as well. Check out our friends at Dead Soxy when you get a chance. You won't find a better product on the market. Again, we tried them out before we let them come on and be an advertiser with us. We're not going to promote anything we don't like. A couple of Ole Miss grads who are doing fantastic work when it comes to comfort and technology in socks. I would never think I would use the word technology in socks, but it's there. So try them out. And also, if you're going to watch the game this Saturday, swing by our friends at Academia Brewing Company. They're going to have, you know, of course, they'll have their beer and briskets brunch before the game. But if you're there later on for the game at 3:30, be sure to check out the giant screens they have it on. They have the watch along. They have all that great beer, fantastic food, chef-inspired dishes. You just can't beat it. They have the beer garden outside. It's October. Go out there for Oktoberfest. Drink outside on that great patio that they have with all the plants, with the nice weather. Of course, today it's raining cats and dogs, but still, if you want to go to Trivia Tuesday this evening, check them out. But Saturday, if you want to watch a game with a great group of people, not everybody's going to drive down to Auburn. Head out to Academia Brewing Company, try all those different beers. Get the little flight, where you can get 4 different beers and you try each one and then get a second flight. And now you've tried 8 beers. Find ones you like, take them home with you, have a great meal, have a great experience watching the game, and support a huge dog fan. Of the founder of Academia Brewing Company is a gigantic, he's an alum. He's a gigantic dog fan. He will be out there barking with the rest of them. So that's a great place to check out the game. All right, Coach, I want to kind of shift gears here a little bit and talk about the Auburn game. You mentioned them just barely or just a second ago. Tell us a little bit more about what Georgia can expect in Auburn.
Well, they have a new coach, Brian Harsin, come in from as the head coach from Boise State, and he's got several of his coaches that were on his staff, and he also hired Mike Bobo, who everybody knows from here, and Will Friend, who is Bobo's friend too, to coach the O-line. So they got Cadillac Williams coaching the running backs, and a new receiver coach. He actually fired the receiver coach after the Georgia State game, a guy named Williams, who had really good ties to Alabama as a high school and college coach. So usually don't see that happening during the season. And then Derek Mason is the defensive coordinator, which is real good for us and from my standpoint, because he just has had a hard time over the years. They did beat us the one year, which it was like we tried every way to give it to him, and we did. But he's a very good guy, but just seems has a hard time getting his team lined up. And I'm sure they'll work hard against us. But I know tempo has hurt their team. But realistically, they've had a lot of guys enter the transfer portal. They've had some new transfers come in. They've had some guys ruled ineligible. One of their defensive linemen right now up in the air whether he's going to be able to play because eligibility didn't make the trip to LSU. I think they're just a team kind of in flux between the old style and the new style, a team that's really taking advantage of one of the easiest schedules in America, non-conference. I mean, when you look at Alabama State, Akron hadn't won a game. I don't think Alabama State's won the game. And Georgia State's like 1-4. But they've really almost lost to Georgia State. But big win for them, though. I tell you, when you can beat LSU down there, first time since 1999 that they've beaten them. So that's 10 or 11 different times they've had a chance to play against them and hadn't beaten them. They did have a good game against Penn State where they went down to the wire, and you give them credit. But I feel good about it. We just got to take care of business. We got to go down there and sound like a coach here, execute, and we got better players than they do. I mean, this team lost their coach because they didn't win enough games. We won every game against them except 2 in the last 16 or 17 years. So our kids know how to play against them. We dominated them last year over here in a big-time matchup. So we'll see.
Who was the quarterback in that game?
Yeah, I think Bennett was. But, we had Pickens, had a good game. Karras caught 10 passes. But, I think it's just a game of from our standpoint of not giving them anything easy and containing Nick's. Just one thing you have a tendency to do when you're a good pass rushing team is you want to destroy the guy, on a pass rush. But you got to stay in your lanes and stay under control because he's shifty and very, very good at avoiding the rush. And we did a good job against them last year. They didn't do anything on offense against us. I mean, nothing. I mean, just completely destroyed them. And then 2 years ago, we had them shut out till the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden they got things going a little bit. We sat on it on offense and, had a big lead. But Nix has had a hard time against us. There's no question about it. And, he certainly should have better confidence after last week's game, piloting his team to a victory. But I don't think that their defense probably is as good as Arkansas's. Offense might be a little better with the quarterback, but we got a really, really good shot of winning this game, in my opinion.
I think the main concern for the Auburn game is going to be the road atmosphere if Auburn gets any kind of momentum, because Jordan-Hare Stadium is one of the toughest places to play when it's rocking. And I think Georgia's seen that. You go back to 2017, there a lot of momentum created. Georgia was a better football team, not that day. I mean, that's how this happens. This gap is a lot larger this year compared to what we were looking at in 2017. Auburn's got a pair of good running backs. Receiver, they're probably a little bit worse than they've been in recent years. We know who Bo Nix is. To me, I'm more curious about what Auburn does on defense to try to stop Georgia. And if I'm watching the Arkansas game, I'm saying, look, we're going to load the box and we're going to make them try to beat us passing because they are young at receiver. And so if there's going to be that crowd factor that gets receivers a little bit kind of off their game, that's going to be the position that Georgia's vulnerable at. So that's what I'm doing if I'm defending against Georgia. We'll see if Auburn does that.
Anybody that really believes in the power of prayer, get down on your knees and pray that they rush us and dare us to pass. Get on your knees tonight and pray to God. Please let them line up and think that that's the way to beat us, because it will be ugly if that's what they do. And, I agree with you about, hey, you got to pick your poison, but they can't cover our guys, regardless of who's playing receiver for us. They can't cover us unless they get some kind of rush. They couldn't cover, those guys from LSU, but their rush came through for them and made enough sacks. But I feel like our offensive line is decidedly better than LSU. And I wasn't trying to be overwhelming there, but we can throw the football against a blitzing team. I guarantee you. We got Todd Monken, who's a magician at getting the protections and throwing the hot routes to the different people, at using the tight ends, at throwing to the backside of the backfield. Who's going to cover our backs from their linebackers? I don't see it. So our biggest concern for me is taking care of the ball and not making stupid mistakes. Like you say, playing in a tough environment. But we have a decided advantage on them, our offense versus their defense.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Coach, how do you attack this Georgia team? If you are Auburn, how do you stop them? How do you stop the offense, I should say? Because it seems pretty balanced. We saw teams load the box, and against UAB, Georgia just started bombing away, dropping bombs on them. Then Arkansas comes in here and drops back 6, and you just ran it down their throats. It's like, I mean, I know that you want to have an identity, but at the same time, as Kirby said yesterday at his press conference, he kind of teased all the press guys there. He said, I know you're all great defensive coaches, but, sometimes you got to just count and see how many guys I have on the line versus how many guys you have on, and that sometimes determines what you do. If you were trying to –
I think one of the things you got to do is look at who we have in the game and call your game accordingly. If we got 2 tight ends, we're a heavy run play action team. If we got 3 wideouts, we're more of a RPO, inside zone team. If we got 2 backs, we can do just about anything, throw the ball to the other back. So first of all, figure out who they got in the game and then mix it up. I mean, use your inside. I mean, one of the best things to do against a team if you're outman is do what South Carolina did to us a couple years ago, slant your front, try to get some movement and open up an area by slanting or angling or twisting. I don't think you can line up pure vanilla against us like Arkansas did. We're just too good. You got to mix it up, bring some outside pressures with your corners, outside with your star, and mix up those stunts and hope you get some stops and make us punt. I mean, that's the idea is, get off the field on defense. That's what you got to do, and hope your offense, which is hard for a defensive coach at Auburn or Arkansas or anywhere, hope your offense can generate enough ball possession where you're not back out there immediately. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If all of a sudden you get a team and you stop them, and then your offense comes out there and it's 3 and out, you just can't keep – if you're undermanned defensively, you can't keep counting on the fact that you're going to stop these guys enough to make a difference. So usually when you make a game plan, you're saying, hey, they're going to have 12 to 14 possessions, and we've got to get them off the field like 6 or 7 and then see what happens in the other 7 and hope that we can hold them to a field goal or they get a turnover. So that's what you got to do when you're making those plans. But
that makes sense.
Even if they plan that, I don't think it'll work against us. I don't think it'll work.
No, I mean, I like your point. This is a team that lost its coach last year. They didn't win enough games. Georgia beat them 27-6, but that was in Athens. But I think Georgia's a better football team than they were last year. I think Auburn's not as good as a team as they were last year. So,
right.
But Dayne also has a good point in that it's on the road, and that does make a big difference. I know a lot of people want to say, it's all the same, but let's say Georgia does go, they don't move the ball like they want to, and they do punt it. Remember, I'm not reminding our viewers, Georgia has a great punter. This guy's booming these kicks, and most of the time you're going to have to drive 65, 75, 85 yards against that Georgia defense. There's not a whole lot, unless there's a turnover. These teams are getting short fields. Now, every once in a while, there's a shank, but that's indicative. I mean, it's built into the cake, if you will, when it comes to college punters. Everybody gets one or two, and it's going to happen. But most of the time, those punts are deep, and they're having to drive the entire field to get back. So I think that can you do it once or twice? Absolutely. Can you do it consistently for the whole game? I don't see that happening anytime soon. I do want to mention our friend. Go ahead, Coach. Do you have a response?
I was going to say we get some questions here. I could do the what if all day, but I'm afraid Derek Mason might listen to this and pick up a few things.
Yeah, and again, that's Georgia's had some pretty good luck against him. If you are, it is Tuesday. I want everybody to swing by our friends at Europie, and if you were looking for something for lunch today or you're looking for something at dinner, check out Europie. Check out the app. Go to the Europie app on your phone and order your pizzas, your salads, your sandwiches, your breadsticks, all the great stuff they have out at Europie. You can even order ice cream if you want. Their gelato. If you do it on Tuesday, you get double points. The points add up very quickly, and all of a sudden you get a free pizza, free breadsticks, free sandwiches, like the No-No's Italian. And they have a ton of locations all over the Southeast. Can't miss one. I just clicked on the locations thing. There are just an absolute ton of them. And of course, for folks who are new to the podcast, Europie is basically a restaurant where you go in and you think of like a Subway, the way it used to be. You walk in, you tell them what kind of bread you want, and then they put everything on top of it. It's the same with Europie. You go in, you pick the 4 or 5 different crusts they have. They spread it out. You can choose what type of marinara you want on it or what type of sauce, and then as many toppings as you want. They don't charge you per topping. You can throw them all on there. They toss it into a super hot oven while you pay and get your drink, sometimes beer, sometimes, a local craft brew, or, just Coke through one of their crazy Coke machines. By the time you sit down, a few minutes later, they walk up with a freshly cooked, piping hot, fantastic personal pizza that you designed while you were in there. Of course, they also have sandwiches and pastas, and then now you can get a big 14-inch pie for a Bulldog football watching party. So that's why I say come Saturday, if you don't have plans, you're looking for something to eat, try a couple of those Europie giant pizzas.
I'm going to correct you real fast just because I've been in some of their corporate meetings. Some people do refer to them as kind of like the Subway of the pizza genre. It's a better and more efficient system than that. It's a much better experience.
Tell them, hey, I want a few more extra olives. Can I get a little? Throw this on there, throw that on there. It's that kind of walk-in.
It's a fully customizable experience.
Absolutely.
You'll love it.
Now, I mentioned if you're watching the game this Saturday, one of the great ways to watch the game this Saturday is in the watch-along party, where you have the game, the Georgia versus Auburn game, on your big TV, on your giant screen. And then on your phone or your iPad or your laptop, you have a second screen checking out YouTube. And on the YouTube channel you're looking at the UGASports YouTube channel. And that way you'll see Coach Donnan and myself and Dayne commenting on the game in real time. We have a camera set on Coach Donnan. We're in the shot every once in a while. And it's basically all of us talking about the game as it happened. So you can,
Coach, you brought the energy this week. I mean, I was
you
fired
did.
up for
There's some
that new
singing,
kickoff.
there's some
Yeah, well,
cheering.
big game there. You know, I was ready to go, but we got to have some good questions here. I know everybody's tired of hearing this.
Let me finish and tell everybody about the Watch Along Show is sponsored by our friends at Athens Ford. The reason I bring up the Watch Along Show is because Athens Ford, who not only sponsors this podcast, they sponsor that Watch Along Show. And so the only ads you have to hear every once in a while are us talking about the great deals at Athens Ford, like the 0% financing on Ford F-150s, you know, or talking about how great the Broncos are, which everybody knows that, or how great the service is out there. So you don't have to listen to all the commercials. You don't have to listen to the CBS announcers. You can listen to Coach Donnan and Dayne and myself talk about Georgia football, give you insights, break news, great reaction stuff. We can be homerish, you know, whereas the announcers don't have to do that, and they have to kind of play it straight. We can talk about how much Auburn sucks and how great Georgia football is throughout the entire 3 hours that we do the show. And that is sponsored by Athens Ford, and we would not be able to do it without them. All right, Dane, hit us up with some questions there, brother.
All right, so yeah, these are from UGAsports.com at the DawgVent. So what appears on the screen, it may be just a snippet because I have some character limits. This question for you, Coach. So Arkansas didn't seem to adjust well on defense after Georgia was able to run efficiently against the three-man front. The question, how difficult is it for a team to change a game plan when they're identifying that things are not working?
It shouldn't be. I mean, that's why you're getting paid. The guy's getting paid almost $2 million to be the defensive coordinator. So it shouldn't be. What is hard is to actually physically do it and get your players to execute. But, wise man changes and a fool never does. I mean, you got to make some adjustments during the game. I mean, that's part of the deal. You got to be able to what you plan. Maybe it doesn't take very long to figure. It's not, we underestimated our ability to do this. We've got to stop the bleeding here. It's, we got to do something different. And it shouldn't be difficult to adjust as far as what you plan. But what is difficult is, can your players execute enough physically to it doesn't make any difference what you do as far as putting them in position, but can they execute against the other team? And no matter what they did Saturday, as long as we had a hat on the hat, that means we had somebody blocking and they didn't have an unblocked guy. We physically dominated them. They didn't get off blocks. They weren't able to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage. So he makes a good question. It shouldn't be difficult for any coach, little league on up, to make some kind of change, because if you don't have some kind of alternative plan going in, you shouldn't be coaching.
Radi, I'll send this one to you. It's a question that Kirby Smart gets often. When will the walking wounded return? So just a quick hitting injury update as you know it.
Well, Kirby actually said yesterday that he had no idea when the wide receivers would be back. We did see Darnell Washington come back and play some. He made a good point. He says, well, if Darnell Washington is back, why isn't Tyke Smith back? He had the same, broken metatarsal. And Kirby's like, it's a lot different what you're requiring a defensive back to do, all the cutting and turning and running that he has to do. It's a little bit tougher on him, but he is he is at practice. I think Don Blaylock, if you can get that hamstring straightened out, get it loosened up. He worked on it yesterday, that he could be back this coming week. But we don't have a timeline right now for Arian Smith or Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint. It's just one of those things that, and the exact same thing with JT Daniels. You're just going to have to wait, see how they do Tuesday, see how they do Wednesday, see how they feel Thursday, see how they feel Friday. There's just not a timeline on it. It's how fast can you heal without re-aggravating or making things worse. And I know that those kids want to come back. They're fighting to come back. But at the same time, Ron Corson and the training group over there said, look, you can come back. And we could numb this up and you run on it, and next week you'll be out, and the week after you'll be out. So to me, I don't think Georgia fans understand how great it is that you don't have to worry about a trainer bringing a guy back too early or holding him out too long, to kind of maintain their ego or their credibility. Ron Corson walks that line perfectly, and that's why he's considered one of the best in the business. So,
Coach, at the top of the show, you mentioned the officiating for Georgia's penalties in the punt game. Here's another question. This one from Lump Dog about officiating. It says this past game, Arkansas was called a couple of times for having an illegal man downfield. Lump Dog says that as he watched the Alabama game, there seemed to always be at least one lineman downfield when Bryce Young passed on an RPO, but it was never called. Why do you think the infraction of man downfield is not called more often?
Because Nick doesn't want him to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I said that in jest, but I mean, it pretty much they get some calls. I mean, it's just the reality. That's where the bread's buttered. And if it's anything's up in the air, a lot of times they're not going to call it. But it is a very tough call. I mean, here's the point. It used to be you would have a play action pass and the lineman would be setting back and blocking. Now they go down the field on a run on these RPOs because of the play is a run. And you can be 3 yards down the line of scrimmage, but anything past that is supposed to be called, but it's not called a lot. So he makes a good point. I think you could probably call it a lot more than it is, but so anytime you have a broken play and the guy's running and it looked like it's a running play, then there's a chance to have the illegal receiver downfield. And they did a good job of calling that Saturday on Arkansas. And I hope if we get to Alabama and they get to us that they'll call that, because it's definitely an advantage to throw the ball when you have a guy downfield, because the defensive backs are really trying to key, and they see those guys running downfield, they think it's a run. So, I mean, it's tough.
Thanks for that question, Lump Dog, one of the loudest supporters of the Watch Along show. We do appreciate you. Billy Zane with the question, a little 4D chess kind of a question here. Do offensive coordinators call certain plays or games to put things on tape for future opponents, or is it almost 100% about attacking the defense on any given Saturday?
That's a
very good call. I remember when we were at Florida State, Parcells said early in the season, said they were going to run a couple things against some team just so you make other team practice it. And he was right. I mean, you do that if you've got the capabilities now on offense, if you got the capabilities of running a lot of plays, then you throw something out there just so they got that in their mind. Hey, what if they do this and they have to work on it? So he makes a good point. I think particularly in a runaway game, you really be careful about showing something that you really don't want them to see, which is something you got but you got some stuff that you'd like for them to see, to think about. You got that in your mind too, because there's some devious guys calling plays now. I mean, I was devious. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you're thinking ahead and, hey, let's make Tom Osborne and those guys think about this. We probably won't do it. And along those lines, I just want to say my mentor, my man, Barry Switzer, 84 years old today, and he's having a golf tournament out there to raise money for ex-players that hadn't been able to make it, that are, have medical bills and things like that. And my son, Todd, just sent me a picture of he and Coach Switzer, and made me real happy because of two people I love very dearly out there raising money. That was awesome.
Happy birthday, Coach Switzer. Excited.
84, man. 12-5-1 against Tom Osborne.
Question from Alma Dog. Do you have any experience with lat strains? And if so, in your opinion, how should Kirby Smart handle the JT Daniels situation in terms of him throwing over the next 2 weeks or so?
Yeah, I mean, sore arm is a part of any coach's any coach over the years. You've had quarterbacks that have problems, whether it's tendonitis in the elbow, whether it's the lat, the oblique, whatever it is. I mean, you read about pitchers, and if some injuries, rest is better than anything. I mean, you can do all these sophisticated things with that they use now, but usually your body's telling you what to do, and the rest is inactivity helps it as much as anything. So I think in this case, we want to try to get him back, but we got to be careful that we don't extenuate it by bringing him back too quick. So it's every guy's got different pain tolerance and things like that. But I know this, I've never had too many quarterbacks be very successful when their arm's sore because they think they can throw the ball with the velocity that they normally do. They take a chance on throwing it like that and they don't get it. And there you get an interception. So even though everybody's talking about, hey, let's get him back in there, let's do that, I think what we got to do is trust Kirby, trust Ron, trust JT. If he's ready, when he's ready, he'll be ready and he'll go. But I think the question is very well warranted. I mean, I've had a lot of guys with sore arms, that's for sure. And I've had a lot of guys with sore asses too when I got after them a little bit too, because you get after their ass a lot.
Listen to Kirby's words and watch his actions. They truly believe Stetson Bennett can lead this team to big-time wins. And if you don't, that's because you don't have the information they do in practice. I don't like the narrative that's out there that Stetson Bennett can't do this and can't do that. He's a good football player. And
yeah, I don't go to practice much anymore, but I used to. And Stetson Bennett has thrown as many passes against our defense as Joe Burrow did, as Kyle Trask did, as Tua did, as Hurts did, as Mac Jones did. You've seen all of those passes against our defense in practice. So that, to me, shows me that he's got that capabilities.
Question from James Brown, please, who is so much fun.
James Brown.
Will Georgia have a spy on Bo Nix? Didn't Trayvon Walker play a similar role previously when he keyed in on Bo Nix?
Definitely we'll have one 007 defense. We'll have either Anderson or Walker or somebody or the other Walker, Quay Walker, because that's something you got to watch out for. But we'll have a control rush too. I mean, we'll rush him hard, but those guys will break down. I think we'll do a really good job. I know we do drills in practice where, you just have those guys chasing after them and they get tired, but they have to break down and then make the tackle, but, wrap them up. So I think we'll have a very effective pass rush against Bo Nix. And, the number one thing we got to do is don't give them any of those easy runs that are bunch yards, And the thing they did extremely well in that game, and I give Mike Bobo credit, and I didn't want to watch that game. I was tired. I did the watch along. I watched the Alabama game. I watched all those games, and then this game comes on at 9 o'clock, which is a little bit close to my bedtime, and kept on to about 1:45. But I stayed up and watched it because I wanted to be able to talk to our fans about it and be ready to have a good scouting report, because we're playing Auburn. But they did a really good job of putting that young back Shivers in there, who is good out of the backfield. I mean, a lot like Cook, coming out of the backfield one-on-one against an LSU backer, and he made some really big third down conversions, at least 3 where they threw the ball to him on a little dump out of the backfield, and he caught it and ran and made the first down. So N'Kobe Dean, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, they'll be all over that guy Saturday. They'll be on him like a piranha.
Hey, Sean Shivers is one of the fastest kids in the SEC, folks. Do not discount him at all. We talked about some of the talent Auburn's lost since last year.
Good player.
He is lights out. You go back to him running against Tyson Campbell and Anthony Schwartz in that 4x1. I mean, that 100-meter dash in Florida State track championships. The kid can absolutely fly.
And the other thing, last year we had South Carolina outmanned, but they did some good things scheme-wise against us. And one thing when I mentioned South Carolina, Mike Bobo was calling the plays. Hey, this is best friends. This is lifelong buddies, college roommates going against each other. Mike Bobo versus Kirby Smart. You think they don't want it? I mean, this is a really big deal. And I guarantee you, Mike's going to pull everything out of the hat that he can to try to get after Kirby, and Kirby's going to do the same thing. It's not Mike versus Kirby, vice versa, but deep down, it's a little bit of that.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Here's a comment from Facebook. I'm just going to brag on myself because David and Susan Elliott ask, I think Auburn puts the front seven in the box and makes Stetson Bennett beat them. What do you think? That's exactly what I said. I think they'll do.
Hey, I hope they do.
This is a bit of a leading question here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This is from A6A4F18. I guess that's a username. How much of the playbook is Georgia holding back?
Maybe a little in the passing game because of our receiver situation, but our playbook, I don't know what our playbook looks like, or even if we have one because of the computers on the iPad and everything, but I don't think many of our older people could carry it. If you put it up under your arm, we've got everything potentially in the history of college football. I don't know if we got any wishbone in there, but we got a lot of stuff, a lot of volume, and like I said, our Todd Monken. He's been around the pro game and been around all these coaches, and he's got a good repertoire of stuff to do. And defensively, just multiply that by 5. We got about 9 million defenses that we could call. And so our playbook is, I don't know if this word, how do you say?
Voluminous?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Putting that Grady College education to work.
Hey, there you go.
Well done.
Shout out to Tripp, who's watching in Gulf Shores.
I can end with this last question here. We had a handful more. Keep asking every week. We'll make sure to get to as many as we can. This from King Mario 981 at the DawgVent. Who do you think could come back from injury and have the greatest impact besides JT Daniels?
George Pickens.
Team, I knew he was going to beat me to it.
There's no better answer.
Before JT, George Pickens.
Yeah.
He just makes the whole defense worry about him, and he's probably right now the most explosive player. Butte down there at LSU. George Pickens would be great, and hopefully we can get him at the end of the year. And everybody wants him to come back sooner, but the other guy that I would say, obviously JT, but I would just say, just because down after down he plays so good, if we can get Kieris back in there where he's not having to come out of the game, the way he blocks, the way he can run reverses, the way he can catch tunnel screens, the way he can get over the middle. He caught 10 passes last year against our Auburn. I would like to see him back 100% too.
Give me Don Blaylock back.
Hell, give him any. You said the number.
Oh, no,
did you take Don Blaylock before Pickens?
No, I want George Pickens back first. That would be the biggest impact. But I think because out of sight, out of mind, I think people have forgotten how money Don Blaylock was.
No question.
Dropped. If you.
But realistically, he hadn't played in 2 years. So
that's what I'm saying. People forget about how good he was.
I wish he could. Yeah. I think realistically that Kieris can come back before him. But
Kieris has already been back out there. So hit on that question real quick from Robert Barnes, because this is something I want to touch on.
Is this in the chat?
I got it.
Okay, there you go.
Says, am I the only person who sees holding against Georgia's defensive line? Do refs feel sorry for teams when they're getting beat so bad? Coach, you've been out there and you've seen it. You're up 3, 4, 5 scores, and all of a sudden you put in your backups and they're being mauled. And are you pushing for that call still?
They get arthritis in their hands. They don't pull them out of their. They don't pull those flags. They're trying to get over there and get that pregame, that postgame Zaxby's or Chick-fil-A in there and get out of the town. They don't call them. I wish they would, but and sometimes they don't call them during the game because the game's so out of hand. But I really will give our officials do a really good job. It's a tough, difficult thing, and it's hard for me to say this, but for the most part, they really do a good job, and it's hard to call a game. These guys are so much bigger, stronger, faster than they used to be, and a lot of things are going there quickly. But you got a job, call it. That's what you're supposed to do. So call it. And
I agree 100%.
Holding is the least called. The other thing that they don't call enough, I don't think, is roughing the passer.
Spoken like a quarterback.
I think you got to. Well, I mean, you got to protect those quarterbacks. So I mean,
Correct.
Be careful with them. But hey, one thing I want to just say again, this team has got a lot of things going for it. They're really good kids. Number one, you don't read a lot about anything happening to this team off the field. I think Kirby's done a really good job of the team bonding together, and you can see how they epitomize team. So let's continue to enjoy what they're doing. And if you can go to that game, I know I coached 2 teams that won in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and the fan base we had down there was a big part of it, because during the game, there was some silence on the Auburn side because we were doing pretty well. So don't forget that you mean a lot even on a road game. And Jordan-Hare, hey, let's go get them. Let's get after them. They got hedges down there, and our players really think that they're playing between the hedges. So they're playing hard.
I absolutely agree 100%. That is to touch on Robert's thing. Yes, we don't see calls made at the end of games. I've been in many a blowout, and you're seeing the second guys get strung up. But also, I've covered way more games than I'm embarrassed to admit how many times I've been in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I won't be this week. I'll be in Coach's den there. We'll do the watch along show, but you can hear the Georgia fans when they get rocking, and it's a loud stadium. They absolutely can throw you off if you're trying to run your offense. But score a couple times, it gets very quiet in there. And those Georgia fans, my God, you hear them. They are just – it does start to feel – I won't say like a home game, but it does balance it out. So you may be outnumbered 9-1, but when you're up a score, you're up 2 scores, and the band's kicking up, and the Georgia fans in I think that's the northwest corner of that end zone. I could be completely wrong in my orientation, but they are loud. And then when they're going into the locker room and all those Georgia fans, it's that tiny little tunnel, that crappy little visitors locker room, when they're going in at halftime and they can hear all the Georgia fans cheering for them, that picks them up. So if you can make it to that game, absolutely do so. If not, join us for the watch along. All right, Dan, you want to take us out?
Yep, and we can wrap the show here. Thanks for watching UGA Sports Live. For Jim Donnan and Radi Nabulsi, I'm Dayne Young. We'll see you.